Leap back in time and you're standing in Scythopolis, a city of 20,000 people in Roman times near the Jordan River. On the hill over there, the bodies of Saul and Jonathan were taken after the battle on Mount Gilboa 3,000 years ago. Today, the town is called Bet-Shan, its old Hebrew name. The ruins of the Roman public bathhouse extend over an acre, with every facility for fitness and worship that Roman legionnaires expected. There were even public toilets with running water. No toilet paper though, you just used a leaf on a twig or a sponge on a stick if you were a Roman soldier. This site gets us right back into the ancient world of Israel after the time of Jesus. So now let's leave the Roman theatre with its great architecture and go to Bethlehem. After the barley harvest, a shepherd watches over his flock in a field near Bethlehem. In the town, we go down beneath the Church of the Nativity to a cave, the traditional site of Jesus' birth, marked by a star. Opposite it, a place for a manger. Back in Galilee, a boat ride across the lake takes us to Capernaum, where Jesus called his first disciples. The synagogue is a 4th century building on the foundations of the synagogue where Jesus came on the Sabbath and read the scriptures. Nearby, under a modern concrete edifice, we see a stone-built house enlarged with an octagonal wall. Surely this was the home of Simon Peter's mother-in-law, which later became a place of meeting for the early disciples. Around the lake, we come to the Mount of Beatitudes. Was this where Jesus taught the crowds? The CFI group had lunch at Ein Gev after we removed the shekel from the mouth of Peter's fish. Then we began the long journey to Jerusalem. On the way, we climbed the hillside at En-Gedi by the shore of the Dead Sea. We enjoyed the cool mountain waters at this wilderness refuge of King David. Leaving Jericho behind us, we recalled the parable of Jesus about the Good Samaritan journeying on this road. Another time, was he referring to this flat-top mountain, the Herodian, on the outskirts of Jerusalem, when he said, "If you say to this mountain, be cast into the midst of the sea," it had been gilded by the much-hated Herod as his tomb. At last, from the Mount of Olives, we looked at the Golden Gate of Jerusalem. Jesus wept over the city. These gates will open for the return of Israel's Messiah. As a 12-year-old, he trod these steps up to the southern wall of the temple. This is the way of ascent he walked again in the last week of his earthly life. "See these great walls," he said, "not one stone of them will be left standing on another." So it was in AD 70. The stones of the temple came crashing down into the Roman street below. A leak from an old drainage pipe led archaeologists to the pool of Siloam, mentioned in both Old and New Testaments. Beside the western wall of the temple, worship, study and prayer continues from one generation to another. After the Last Supper in Jerusalem, Jesus came to pray among the olive trees of Gethsemane. The soldiers came and led him up the valley to the house of Caiaphas. Nearby has been found posts to which prisoners could be bound for scourging and an underground pit. They led him from there to Pilate's house, then through the narrow streets of Jerusalem on the way to the cross. They plaited a crown of thorns and put it on his head. They brought him to Golgotha, the place of a skull. Then one of the Roman soldiers who crucified him put a sponge on a stick. Think back to our opening sequence at Bet-Shan. Was it his personal toilet kit the soldier used? Was that the final humiliation of the Christ? The soldier offered him wine from a sponge on a stick. "It is finished," he said, and died. Nearby was a rich man's garden, here's a winepress near the hill of a skull, and here a tomb in the garden. But when the women came to the tomb on the third day, the stone was rolled away and the tomb was empty. Tell Peter and the other disciples to meet me in Galilee, the risen Jesus said to Mary. The disciples returned to Galilee. They were fishing early one morning when they saw him by a charcoal fire on the beach. This little church by the steps from the beach commemorates the place where the risen Jesus met with Peter. "Do you love me?" Jesus asked. In Jerusalem, words on the communion table at Christ Church say in Hebrew, "Do this in remembrance of me." One evening we ate together in the home of a Jewish couple overlooking Jerusalem. It was a family gathering. Today we are his family as we share the bread and wine together and remember him.